The two wealthy young men sat in the car, wondering if they might encounter a few classical ladies here who were as calm as water and as gentle as jade. It turned out they had come from Shanghai to Shitong town for a vacation. Unexpectedly, they caused a stir among the village's young girls. A special matchmaking feast quietly unfolded, and a gentle classical beauty in the crowd immediately caught Ding Zihui's attention. Having never tasted love before, he felt his heart race for the first time. Ding Zihui instantly caught the heart of the young girl, Jian Rujing. As someone who had been through it, Mrs. Jian immediately saw through their thoughts and burst out laughing. Because as long as her daughter could marry into a wealthy family, her good days would be on her side. But unexpectedly, the next second, she couldn't laugh anymore. Because at that moment, her second daughter Jian Rutian rushed out holding fresh flowers and deliberately dirted the clothes of another young master, Song Wenxi. This shocked everyone present. You have to know, Song Wenxi is the richest man in Shanghai, the ideal man that countless young women dream of marrying. But Rutian didn't care. Seeing Song Wenxi in such a mess, she looked quite pleased. It turned out that just yesterday, Song Wenxi had come to Shitong for vacation at Ding Zihui's invitation. But before he even entered the house, he ran into Rutian, who was climbing over the wall. Unexpectedly, Song Wenxi mistook her for a flower thief. Rutian panicked and hid, but Song Wenxi refused to let her go. He grabbed a water gun and forced Rutian to reveal himself. Although Rutian insisted on having an agreement with the previous owner of the house, saying she was helping to tend the flowers and plants and exchange her own labor for flowers. Unexpectedly, Song Wenxi didn't believe her and even withheld Rushan's flowers. This made her very frustrated. Because her father borrowed high-interest money everywhere to trade stocks, he lost everything, left behind a letter leaving the 5 orphans and widowed mother and child to run away from home. Now, the whole family survived by selling flowers like a field. Song Wenxi's actions were undoubtedly cutting off her source of income. That's why Rutian took revenge on Song Wenxi at such an occasion. And just as she was escaping, she accidentally fell. Seeing her sister embarrassed, Rujing hurried forward to help her out. Her well-educated and reasonable demeanor made Zihui feel even more tempted. Welcome to my residence. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Jian's heart instantly bloomed, completely forgetting that she had once betrothed Rujing to her cousin Jian Erden just to find a place to stay. And in 3 days, he would come to the house to propose. But now, with Ding Zihui as her wealthy son-in-law, Mrs. Jian naturally wanted to break off the engagement. So she immediately brought Rujing to Ding Zihui's home, only to be turned away. Sorry, ma'am, Mr. Ding's reception time is fully booked today. At the critical moment, the second daughter Rutian had a sudden idea and told the servants she was the gardener at the Ding family villa's flower garden. Using the excuse of delivering a custom-made flower basket to Ding Zihui, she successfully barged in. Ding Zihui saw his beloved Rujing again. He was overjoyed. Taking advantage of this, Ru Tian presented an agreement signed with the previous owner of the villa. She wanted to continue tending to Ding Zihui's villa garden. She didn't want wages, only hoping to make a living by running a small business with flowers that were about to bloom. However, Ding Zihui's friend Song Wenxi held prejudices against the poor, always suspecting they had ulterior motives. He immediately said that since the villa had a new owner, the agreement had to be resigned, and he said he had already sent someone to tend the flower garden. This made Rutian think the guy was still holding a grudge against him for splashing water at the welcome party yesterday. To ease the tension, Jian's mother quickly made Rutian apologize. But stubborn Rutian believed he was completely innocent because Song Wenxi first misunderstood her as a flower thief and sprayed water all over herself. She took revenge on him, and the two were even. So no matter what, she refused to apologize. At that moment, her sister Rujing quickly stood up and slowly walked towards Song Wenxi. She sincerely apologized to him on behalf of her sister. Rujing's poise and manners made Ding Zihui like her even more, so he spoke up for her. For Miss Rujing's sake, please forgive Miss Rutian this once. Forgive me. What did I do wrong? Unexpectedly, at that moment, the servant hurried over to Song Wenxi and muttered a few words, as if something urgent was happening. Song Wenxi immediately followed upstairs. To see the girl he liked again, Ding Zihui invited everyone from the town to his villa to attend the ball. This gave him an opportunity. He could be alone with Jian Rujing. The two of them were affectionate and danced gracefully, which made Jian's mother even prouder, as if Ding Zihui, the wealthy young master, had become their son-in-law. But Rutian, who couldn't dance, accidentally wandered into the Ding family villa. She accidentally stumbled into a terrifying scene. On a stormy night, the wealthy heiress eloped with her beloved, only to be caught off guard by a black sedan that stopped her at high speed. Then a dignified man got out of the car. It was none other than the girl's biological brother, Song Wenxi. Seeing this, Song Wenxuan panicked and ran forward without regard for everything. but was grabbed by Song Wensi, who wanted to take her home. But the love-struck Song Wenshuan stubbornly refused. While they argued, Wenshuan suddenly leaned against the wall and vomited. Song Wensi immediately understood and asked his sister who the child's father was. But Wenshuan seemed to have some unspeakable secret and was unwilling to say, "It's not his fault, it's mine." Enough. With no other choice, he had to use money to have the coachman tell Wenshuan where he was going. So he took Wenshuan to the cafe, wanting to find out who had caused his sister's premarital pregnancy and ruined her reputation. However, they waited for a long time in the cafe, and the sister's beloved never showed up. He only sent a servant to pick up Wenshuan from the cafe. The servant saw Song Wensi's car at the cafe entrance and left immediately. Song Wensi took his sister home. He ordered his servants to keep strict watch and care for him. At the same time, he received a phone call. "I heard someone is trying to use the scandal of his sister's elopement to stir up trouble and sow discord between him and his superiors. I'm afraid the situation between Xihua Pharmaceutical and Yinqing will take a sharp turn." Song Wensi immediately understood everything. It turned out someone was trying to use the scandal of her sister's premarital pregnancy to plunge the Song family into crisis. To protect her sister, Song Wensi took her along with her friend Ding Zihui to the countryside to stay for a short time and found a doctor. He wanted to abort the child in her belly. Unexpectedly, this scene was witnessed by Rutian, who accidentally broke into the villa. To prevent family scandals from being exposed, Song Wensi quickly pulled Rutian to the center of the dance floor and used stiff dance moves to embarrass herself in front of everyone. This made Rutian, who already had prejudices against Song Wensi, dislike this self-righteous man even more. "Don't you think it's embarrassing? You should feel honored." "Honored? This is an insult to me. There are no fewer than 1,000 girls who want to dance with me. Who cares about dancing with you?" Song Wensi was worried about her sister's safety and had no mood to explain to Rutian, which caused their relationship to become deadlocked. And with no children, Song Wenshuan, wanting to see her beloved again, secretly ran away from home with her weak body. Unexpectedly, she collapsed in the mountains from exhaustion and was rescued by Rutian. However, when Song Wensi chased after her, she mistakenly thought Rutian was hurting his sister, and the two quarreled again. "She's very weak. You can't abuse her. You should still care about your sister. Go away." "What's wrong with my sister?" Worried about her sister's condition, Rutian rushed to Ding Zihui's house, only to find her injured sister lying in bed. It turned out that Jian's mother wanted her daughter Rujing to marry into a wealthy family as soon as possible and to escape poverty herself. She carefully planned a chance encounter with her wealthy son-in-law, hoping to match Ding Zihui, who already liked Rujing. Unexpectedly, news of Song Wenshuan's runaway forced Ding Zihui to follow Song Wensi to find her. Seeing her plan about to fall apart, Jian's mother ignored her daughter's safety and dragged her straight into the car. Although this method was dangerous, it did create an opportunity for Rujing and Ding Zihui. Ding Zihui not only found the best doctors for Rujing, he even kept her at home to recover, and their relationship improved rapidly. Anyone with eyes could see they loved each other, but Ding Zihui still hadn't confessed. This made Rutian extremely anxious, and she had a sudden idea for her sister. Song Wenshuan was bewitched and became pregnant before marriage. Perceptive Song Wensi sensed that someone was trying to use the scandal to plunge the Song family into crisis. To protect his sister and the Song family's legacy, Song Wensi had no choice but to call in a doctor. He forcibly aborted the child from his sister's belly. Meanwhile, in order to find out who caused her sister to become pregnant out of wedlock, Song Wensi turned her attention to Rutian, who resembled her sister in stature. He had a servant pretend to deliver her desserts and deliberately wet her clothes. Then she naturally changed into her sister's clothes and styled her hair in the same way. At this moment, Rutian had no idea she had been set up. Once everything was ready, Song Wensi blocked her. Song Wensi's actions left Rutian baffled, and in the middle of the night. Naturally, she didn't want to go out with a man. But Song Wensi grabbed her right away, making Rutian bite him hard. "Miss Rutian, I just want to ask for your help." Seeing the richest man in Shanghai humbly beg him, Rutian also softened. She agreed to his request. Rutian, disguised as Wenshuan, indeed fooled the mastermind behind the scenes. However, the person who came was not his sister's beloved, but his subordinate. And this person was also the former steward of the Song family. And the one who got his sister pregnant was none other than Lu Tianyu, whom he had once considered a brother. Song Wensi instantly understood everything. They were using their sister to take revenge on the Song family. "Go back and tell him Wenshuan has no inheritance rights. Let him give up." However, as soon as they returned home, Song Wenshuan didn't know that his beloved approached her only to seize the Song family's fortune. She insisted on making a fuss to see him, completely ignoring her brother's kind advice. Then Song Wenshuan ran out like a madman, just happened to run into Rutian, and begged her to save him. "My beloved is waiting for me. Please, please help me." To prevent the family scandal from spreading, Song Wensi covered her sister's mouth and forcibly dragged her back to her room. But stubborn Wen Xuan picked up a piece of glass from the floor. She wanted to harm herself. Song Wensi, afraid her sister would get hurt, hurriedly grabbed her hand. Seeing her brother's bloodied hands, Wen Xuan finally calmed down. But Ratian, who witnessed all this, didn't know the reason and thought Song Wensi did it on purpose. He wanted to break up Wen Xuan and her beloved, and Ratian thought she could help plead for him, but was sternly refused by Song Wensi. She already had no good impression of this cold, rich young man, and now she hated this self-righteous guy even more. But she never imagined that in the end, she would love this man to death. To marry her daughter into a wealthy family, her mother even grabbed her hand and rammed it straight into the rich young master's car. As the saying goes, you can't catch a wolf if you don't give up your child. Though this move is risky, but this was a huge chance of success. Thus, Ding Zihui, who had already fallen in love with Ru Jing at first sight, brought her home and cared for her attentively, and their feelings for each other gradually deepened. Having met many delicate young ladies in Shanghai, Ding Zihui grew even more fond of the serene Ru Jing. He soon proposed to her. She agreed. "Aren't you happy for me? I want to take her to see my father. Whether he agrees or not, I will face it together with Ru Jing." But unexpectedly, when he excitedly shared the good news with his friend Song Wensi, he was suddenly doused with cold water. Because in Song Wensi's eyes, Ru Jing's whole family were ordinary people who would stop at nothing to squeeze into high society. Because he had already learned, Ru Jing had already gotten engaged to her cousin just to survive, and now that she's married to Ding Zihui, she's trying to break the engagement. She's always been vain. Unexpectedly, Ratian from upstairs overhears all of this, and she quickly defends her sister. She said she had sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of the whole family's food and clothing, and that her sister's agreement to marry her cousin was a helpless move. Kind-hearted Zihui instantly understood Ru Jing's difficulties and said with concern that he would never let her suffer even the slightest grievance. But Song Wensi still advised Zihui not to act rashly. The Jian family is breaking their contract with Jian Erden now because they have their eyes on him, a more generous buyer. With Miss Ru Jing's beauty, there will be plenty of wealthy young men willing to spend lavishly for her in the future. He must be careful not to become another Jian Erden. Ru Jing really couldn't stand these belittling words, so she could only confess that she had indeed had a purpose in getting close to Ding Zihui at first. "He's right. We had a purpose when we first approached Zihui. Are you telling the truth?" "No, big sister. You date young Master Ding because you've fallen for him. You truly love him." Although Ratian tried every possible way to defend his sister, Ding Zihui still began to doubt his feelings. He couldn't accept that Ru Jing's love for him was not pure. Seeing Zihui hesitate, Ru Jing was heartbroken and ashamed to stay there, begging her sister Ratian to carry her away. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got home, Ding Zihui came running over holding Ru Jing's wheelchair. He had already thought everything through earlier. He believed that all the feelings he had with Ru Jing during these days were real, and that Ru Jing was not as vain as once he claimed. Ding Zihui sincerely apologized to Ru Jing, and the two cleared up their misunderstandings and reconciled as before. Zihui immediately decided to take Ru Jing back to Shanghai to meet his father the next day. No matter how difficult it was, he insisted on marrying Ru Jing properly. But unexpectedly, the next day, when Ratian pushed Ru Jing to Zihui's villa, he found out they had already left. He only left a wad of money for Ru Jing. "Did Ding Zihui ask you to deliver anything?" "No, just leave this behind." Only then did Ru Jing realize she had been abandoned. But her younger sister Ratian felt that Ding Zihui was not like that playboy who abandoned after starting a mess. There must be some hidden reason behind this. For her sister's happiness, she decided to wait until her sister's leg healed, then take her sister to Shanghai to ask Ding Zihui face to face. Only then did Ru Jing feel a bit relieved. But unexpectedly, a big problem struck the family. When his cousin, who was engaged to Ru Jing, learned that Ding Zihui had left, he immediately came to the Jian family and proposed marrying Ru Jing again, promising to double the bride price he had promised. When Mrs. Jian heard this, she was instantly overjoyed and immediately wanted to accept the marriage. For the sake of her sister's happiness, Ratian quickly pulled her mother into the marriage and, after much persuasion, finally persuaded her not to let her sister marry for the time being. Then she went to find her cousin Jian Erden, using the power of the Ding Zihui family to threaten him into retreating in the face of difficulties. But unexpectedly, this cousin was still scheming. She actually fell for the fiery Ratian. Jian's mother's biggest worry in this life was that the fiery Ratian wouldn't get married. Now, being able to exchange this troublesome daughter for a large bride price was naturally delightful. Then, under Jian's mother's arrangement, Jian Erden then proposed to Ratian. But Rutian didn't like this worldly cousin at all. To prevent future trouble, Rutian invited him to a tea house and publicly rejected his cousin in front of the neighbors. "Cousin Erden, if our feelings don't match, you can't be husband and wife at all. I said these things in front of so many people because I didn't want to leave myself a way out. Now you understand my feelings, cousin. You should find someone else to love." Having gotten rid of this big trouble from cousin, Rutian poured all her energy into it. She invested everything in making money, because she wanted to save enough quickly to take her sister to Shanghai to find her beloved. One day, when she heard from her sister that the officer's wife from Shanghai was vacationing there, she immediately brought a newly developed soap to her door. But instead, she encountered something that had happened to her, Lu Tianyu, who had saved his life. And a casual remark by Lu Tianyu unexpectedly changed Rishan's fate. "I've seen a kind of transparent soap before, with petals nestled inside the soap body. Very beautiful." "Transparent flower soap? Where have you seen it before?" "When I was living abroad." Lu Tianyu's words instantly opened up Rishan's mind. To develop transparent soap, she went up the mountain every day to collect wildflowers. But early in the morning, she ran into Lu Tianyu again. Just as Lu Tianyu was about to take Rutian up the mountain, unexpectedly, Song Wensi suddenly walked over at that moment. "I'm waiting for you at Commander Lu's place. Withdraw." Little did they know, the entanglement among the three of them began from this moment. Rutian, who had returned from the mountain in the afternoon, heard that someone was injured and thought it was Lu Tianyu who was hurt. Worried, she immediately ran over, only to run into Song Wensi. Seeing Rutian so worried about Lu Tianyu, Song Wensi felt a strange sadness rising in her heart. But Rutian didn't notice his unusual mood and directly asked about Ding Zihue. "Why did Ding Zihue leave my eldest sister behind without saying goodbye?" "I told you, Zihue and your sister are impossible." The wealthy heiress was tricked into getting pregnant out of wedlock, but when the man learned she had no inheritance rights, he cruelly abandoned her. Wen Xuan could not accept this cruel reality. It was either suicide or hunger strike to hurt himself, which deeply pained Song Wensi, the older brother. After learning that this irresponsible man was actually the butler's son and Lu Tianyu, who had grown up with him, Song Wensi became the richest man in Shanghai. His identity pressured Commander Lu to hold a hunting competition, hoping to use this opportunity to shoot him dead and vent his sister's anger. But at the critical moment, Song Wensi recalled their childhood friendship and ultimately chose to let him go, only warning him from then on, "Don't get close to Wen Xuan anymore. I'm afraid I can't guarantee that. You have to do it. As the older brother, how come you don't understand your sister? Wen Xuan is a stubborn girl. One day she'll break free from your control." But Lu Tianyu was afraid. Song Wensi wouldn't let him off the hook and hid in a thatched hut deep in the mountains, where Rutian, who was picking flowers on the mountain, happened to see him. Lu Tianyu keenly sensed that Song Wensi had special feelings for Rutian, so he exaggerated the story about the hatred between them. Told her, "An officer with nothing. What right does he have to romance the Song family's daughter?" For Song Wensi, this was simply a disgrace. I understand. He couldn't even tolerate his good friend, resulting in a mismatched marriage. Clearly, Tianyu had deliberately approached Wen Xuan to seize the Song family's assets, but now he was disguising himself as the victim. And he had always thought Song Wensi was arrogant and rude, despising the poor and loving the rich. Rutian disliked Song Wensi even more. Little did he know, Song Wensi unknowingly fell in love with this smart and self-reliant girl. When competitors appeared at Song Wensi's soap factory, Rutian woke him up with a single sentence. "I let the two of them swim in the water. The cheaper piece has already been snatched away by the bird. It's shrunk and still can't be seen yet. I measured it with a ruler. But I believe that if it stays a little longer, the comparison will become very clear." When Rutian developed a new soap at auction, Song Wensi didn't hesitate to bid for a high price. But Rutian didn't thank him. Instead, he thanked Lu Tianyu, because it was a single sentence that inspired Rishan's design. Such an intimate moment made Song Wensi instantly feel jealous, but proud and unwilling to admit it at this moment. He fell in love with a country girl. As Lu Tianyu followed the army to Shanghai, Song Wensi also left the area. He thought life would begin to settle down, but unexpectedly, Jian's father fell seriously ill and needed a large sum of money. Jian's mother remembered Shiru again. Ding Zihue, the wealthy young master of Jing. "Rujing, your leg is almost healed now. It's time to go find young Master Ding. There's been no news of him for so long, and you're still thinking about him?" To find Ding Zihue face to face and get to the bottom of it, she took the money from selling her family's calligraphy and paintings and went to Shanghai with her sister, temporarily staying at her uncle's house. When her aunt heard that Rujing was looking for the famous Ding family in Shanghai, she was instantly delighted and immediately had Rujing dress up carefully. After looking around, She still felt her shoes looked a bit old-fashioned, so she took the two sisters to the store. But she was afraid of spending money, so she found an excuse to slip away. What? I thought he was going to pay. Rutian took her sister into a shoe store and liked a pair of red leather shoes. She wanted to try them on, but the clerk rolled her eyes at them looking so shabby. Just as Rutian, who was looked down upon, was about to argue, a wealthy young lady walked in. The clerk immediately changed his attitude and even sold her the shoes Rutian liked. This made Rutian even more furious, and she immediately stepped forward to say she wanted to buy them. Unexpectedly, the snobbish clerk completely ignored her. Boss, country folks have a lot of temper. Don't mind, just get them on the car. Hey, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by country folks with bad tempers? How much dirty money is so great? Unexpectedly, Song Wensi got out of the car. Rutian immediately realized they were a couple. So you two are a couple. You really are a perfect match. Rishin's prejudice against Song Wensi deepened, but Song Wensi did not step forward to explain. Soon after, Rutian brought his sister to the Ding residence, but the steward told them that Ding Zihui had gone on a long trip. Not at home. Rishin's inherent prejudice made her believe Song Wensi was secretly behind the scenes, because he was the only one who kept opposing her sister's relationship with Ding Zihui. But Rutian had no intention of giving up. She called a car for her sister and told her to go back first. She decided to wait and wait, determined to catch Ding Zihui and demand an explanation. But the weather was unkind. Soon it started pouring rain, soaking the fields like drenched rats, yet she still refused to leave. And this scene happened to be witnessed again by Song Wensi. Seeing Rutian shivering in the rain, Song Wensi's heart felt as if something was tugging at him. A strange feeling made him hold an umbrella and walk toward Rutian. Zihui isn't home. He's gone to Guangzhou. I vouch for my reputation that I'm telling the truth. Why did Ding Zihui leave my sister behind without saying goodbye? Ding Zihui had no intention of answering, because in his eyes, the wealth gap between Rujing and Ding Zihui was simply impossible. This made Rutian even more certain that Ding Zihui's sudden departure was orchestrated by Song Wensi. Since Ding Zihui didn't want to show up, Rutian didn't want to keep entangling. She handed the money Ding Zihui had left to Song Wensi, asking him to pass it on her behalf. This changed Song Wensi's mind, who had thought the Jin sisters had approached Ding Zihui for months. Stubborn Rutian refused Song Wensi's offer to drive him home, walking alone in the cold rain. The usually arrogant Song Wensi drove closely behind, unaware that his heart had already been moved by this country girl. And soon, the two would fall in love with each other to death. A country girl came to Shanghai looking for a job, but unexpectedly met with rejection time and again. Just as she was feeling deeply frustrated, Shanghai's richest man suddenly made a big move, offering 100 silver dollars to hire her to teach her sister how to make soap, to help her sister out of the shadows. Rutian had always held prejudices against Song Wensi, so she wasn't tempted at all by this high-paying job. Just then, her older sister called her aside and told her that the news had been published in the newspaper these past few days. News of Song Wensi's sister, Song Wenxuan, having attempted suicide but failed. Now, the proud Song Wensi was actually willing to bow her head and beg Rutian, which was clearly because she had no other choice. Rutian was already good friends with Wenxuan, so he agreed to Song Wensi's request. The optimistic and cheerful Rutian arrived at the Song family, instantly rejuvenating the previously lifeless Wenxuan, and the smile on his face grew stronger. This made Song Wensi, who already liked Rutian, even more tempted. Meanwhile, Wenxuan forced his brother to bring Rutian over. She didn't really want to learn how to make soap, but asked Rutian to help cover her escape and find her beloved, Lu Tianyu. Rutian, can you help me leave here? I want to see my beloved. I told you, my brother won't let us be together. Rutian was moved by Wenxuan's sincerity and took the opportunity to change clothes with Wenxuan while making soap. Their bodies and builds were already similar, and with masks on, they successfully fooled Song Wensi. Unexpectedly, he turned around and saw Wenxuan wearing Rushin's clothes on the street. Song Wensi thought it was Rutian and wanted to take her home, only to find it was his sister Wenxuan. Enraged, Song Wensi returned home and flew into a rage at Rutian. Blinded by Lu Tianyu, Rutian thought Song Wensi had deliberately broken up the couple. He felt even more unreasonable to Song Wensi. He just wants to meet the person he loves. You don't understand the situation at all. Do you think you're loyal and helpful? What you do will get him killed. Do you realize that? Faced with Rishin's misunderstanding, Song Wensi did not explain to her that he was doing this to protect Wenxuan. He asked the steward to give 300 silver dollars as a reward and told Rutian to leave. This behavior of giving money to the poor made Rutian even angrier, and after bidding farewell to Wenxuan, he prepared to leave. Wenxuan wanted her brother to apologize to Rutian, but the usually proud Song Wensi would never bow to a country girl. I hate you. You drove away my last friend. I'm not happy at all. Why did you save me? Why won't you let me die? Seeing Wen Xuan's emotional state, Rutian feared he might do something to hurt her again, so she ultimately decided to stay. I promised you wouldn't help Wen Xuan leave here anymore. Please let me stay and keep Wen Xuan company, okay? Rutian, I really feel so bad. Song Wensi hadn't expected Rutian wasn't really after money, but genuinely cared about Wen Xuan, and his fondness for her grew even stronger. But at this moment, he was still unwilling to admit that he had fallen for this country girl. As Shanghai's richest man, surrounded by people who flattered and curried favor with him, and Rutian was the first to dare to teach him. If you want Wen Xuan to be happy, you must put aside your elder brother attitude and respect him. Of course, I know it's very difficult for you to do this, because you are naturally not good at respecting people. He even didn't know how to treat others equally. Usually proud, he actually began to reflect on himself, unaware that Rutian had already entered his heart. However, the arrival of his fiancée finally made him realize his true feelings. How can you tolerate such a vulgar woman staying here? Li Rao, Miss Rutian is not without merit. Is that so? Then I want to see for myself. Shanghai's richest man had fallen in love with a country girl, openly admiring her in front of his fiancée, and even his eyes became incredibly gentle whenever he mentioned her. Sensitive Bai Rao immediately noticed Song Wensi had a different kind of affection for Rutian, and what happened next further confirmed her suspicions. Rutian, who was from the countryside, had no idea about Western table manners. She picked up the water she had washed her hands and started drinking. While she was wiping her mouth, he actually saw Bai Rao's face full of mockery. At this moment, Rutian looked embarrassed, wishing he could crawl into a hole in the ground. To help Rutian ease her awkwardness, when Xian imitated her by drinking hand water and even said the water was clean and sweet, giving Bai Rao a hard slap in the face. But what happened next was Song Wensi's. Her actions surprised everyone present. He actually picked up his hand water and started drinking it himself. But this seemed deeply pierced Bai Rao's heart. At that moment, she was finally sure her fiancé had fallen in love with this country girl. From then on, Bai Rao regarded Rutian as a thorn in her side. Seeing him alone admiring the oil painting, he stepped forward to humiliate him. This painting was by a French impressionist master. For someone who doesn't know how to appreciate it, it's truly a waste. But unexpectedly, Rutian's unique insights into oil painting resonated with Wen Xuan. However, Song Wensi did not see it that way. Ignorance is one thing. The most terrifying thing is ignorance without knowing oneself. What's even scarier is arrogance and complacency when one thinks they know a lot, looks down on everyone, and cannot stand to hear any other opinions. The two enemies quarreled again over a disagreement. However, as soon as Song Wensi returned to the study, she asked the steward to take down the oil painting and give it to Rutian. Bai Rao knew the painting was priceless and became even more certain that Song Wensi had fallen for Rutian. So she went to find her alone, humiliated her to the extreme, and tried to drive her away. Remember, here, you'll always be a servant. I don't care at all to stay here, nor am I interested in associating with you sharp-tongued noble families. Although the Rutian family was poor, she had integrity. The next day, she packed her things and left. Faced with the expensive oil painting Song Wensi had the butler deliver, she decisively refused, but Wen Xuan gladly accepted the flowers she picked. Rutian's actions once again made Song Wensi see her in a new light and admire her even more. After Rutian left the Song family to survive, he could only sell flowers on the street, but unexpectedly was bullied by a police officer who happened to be seen by Song Wensi. Ignoring his fiancée's objections, he opened the car door and sped out. As soon as the police saw Mr. Song, famous in Shanghai, they apologized repeatedly. She fled in panic. But in the car, Bai Rao felt a splitting headache. Usually proud, she began to feel a sense of crisis again. Wensi, don't leave me without saying a word like you did just now. Don't leave me. I'm sorry, you'll never leave me, right? However, Song Wensi's heart had long been moved by Rutian. To help Rutian escape her life's difficulties, he secretly bought a flower shop and hired her with a high salary. How about this? You start working today with a monthly wage of $30 silver. $30 silver? Too little. Not less, not less, not at all. Thank you, boss. Naive Rutian had no idea this was Song Wensi's secret help. Meanwhile, Bai Rao felt increasingly insecure, and her plan for revenge against Rutian was about to begin. Her husband had just passed away, and she turned around with a huge inheritance to marry a young and handsome officer, never expecting that this would cost her her life. One day, Mrs. Dong brought her newlywed husband Lu Tianyu to a ball. Although there was a significant age gap, they appeared exceptionally lovely. This scene deeply hurt Wen Xuan. She never imagined that the man she once swore to would turn around and marry another woman. Heartbroken, she drank glass after glass, soon becoming unconscious. At that moment, Lu Tianyu and Madame Dong entered the house in a sweet embrace. Then, with a scream shattering the silence of the night, Lu Tianyu was arrested. It turned out Madame Dong had suddenly been murdered, and Lu Tianyu, the person beside him, became the prime suspect. All the evidence pointed to him. That young Master Lu clearly isn't a good person. Not long after Mr. Dong died, he came to see Madame Dong. Now his wish has come true, and all the inheritance belongs to him. When Xian learned about it from the newspaper, after hearing the news, she was extremely anxious. Although Lu Tianyu had betrayed her, she still loved him in her heart and believed he would never kill anyone. Wen Xuan immediately found her brother Song Wenxi, begging him to help save Tianyu. But Song Wenxi felt that killing should be punished with life and wouldn't let Wen Xuan get involved in these matters. But what Song Wenxi never expected was that the girl he liked came knocking again, begging Song Wenxi to help clear Lu Tianyu's name. It turned out Lu Tianyu had once been right. Rutian had saved his life. To take revenge on Song Wenxi, he not only made Wen Xuan pregnant before marriage and abandoned her when she was no longer useful, but later married Madame Dong to inherit the inheritance. But he exploited Rushan's trust in him, falsely claiming he had left Wen Xuan and married Madame Dong. All of these were oppressed by Song Wenxi through his power. Ru Tian already held prejudices against Song Wenxi, believing he only cared about money and was convinced Lu Tianyu was wronged. So he sought out Song Wenxi and pleaded with him to help clear his name out of past friendship with Tianyu. In the end, kind-hearted Song Wenxi softened and used his connections to release Lu Tianyu. But Lu Tianyu was not grateful because he mistakenly believed his father was killed by Song Wenxi. It turned out Lu Tianyu's father had once been the Song family steward. Lu Tianyu and Song Wenxi grew up together, as close as brothers. Song Wenxi's father treated Lu Tianyu as his own and sent him abroad to study. But unexpectedly, when Lu Tianyu returned after graduation, he found his father had died, and a mysterious letter made him mistakenly believe it was him. Song Wenxi is the murderer who killed her father, so he secretly vows to take revenge. But Rushan's appearance makes him keenly sense that Song Wenxi treats her differently, and a vicious plan for revenge is about to unfold here. The glamorous rich heiress suddenly pulls off her own hair, revealing her most vulnerable side, all because her fiancé had fallen in love with a country girl. And Bai Rao did this to stir up guilt by using her most vulnerable side, locking Song Wenxi tightly by her side. It turned out that when Song Wenxi was ambushed and nearly lost her life, it was Bai Rao who risked her life to save him, and the bullet still remains in his head to this day. Guilt in his heart forced Song Wenxi to stay by Bai Rao's side. But Bai Rao felt very insecure inside, because the usually aloof Song Wenxi was always very happy to mention Rutian, and he became more talkative. He also secretly investigated and discovered that Song Wenxi, in order to help Rutian overcome his financial difficulties, had opened a flower shop and even paid a large sum to hire her. To completely drive Rutian away, Bai Rao asked Madame Ding to handle the flower arrangement competition, then sent Rutian an invitation to participate. Seeing the generous prize money made her extremely excited. For this competition, she went to a tailor shop to make a new qipao, diligently honed her flower arrangement skills, determined to win first place. Unexpectedly, the day before the competition, Rutian received a letter saying the competition started at 10:30 and that she had to wear factory worker clothes. Little did she know, it was all a trap set by Bai Rao. The next day, when Rutian and her sister arrived at the competition venue, they realized it was late. Fortunately, they caught the last train. Her outfit was also mocked by the entire audience. Just as Rutian was feeling flustered, her sister steadied her. No matter who tries to mess with you today, you can't let them see the joke. After going on stage, Rutian saw Song Wenxi in the audience and was convinced he was the one playing tricks on her. And at that moment, the scene was still playing when Hui, stirring music suitable for flower arranging. But Rutian remained calm in the face of danger. She asked the musician to stop the music and accompany her to her own rhythm. Then she proceeded with the flower arrangement demonstration in an orderly manner. Unexpectedly, at that moment, her sister's long-missing boyfriend Ding Zihue suddenly appeared. Seeing that the performer on stage was Rutian Ho, Zihue excitedly stood up and looked around for Ru Jing's figure. When he saw the girl he had longed for day and night, he couldn't wait to walk over, but was stopped by Song Wenxi. "Your father is here. This place is really inappropriate." Because Ding's father had always opposed Ding Zihue and Ru Jing's relationship, to avoid causing a strain, Ding Zihue had no choice but to sit down. Then Song Wenxi took Ru Jing away. Unexpectedly, this scene was witnessed by Rutian. She panicked instantly, which disrupted her finished work. Seeing that time was running out, she had a sudden idea, walked to the audience, picked up a wine glass, and created a very innovative piece. I believe independent women are the most beautiful women. My work is called The Midnight Rose Blooming Independently. Rushin's intelligence and wit earned her applause, and the usually aloof Song Wensi also showed a smile of appreciation. Zihui's mother, Madame Ding, was also very fond of her. Rushin's calmness and innovative spirit immediately made her the champion of the competition. Unexpectedly, she was firmly opposed by Bai Rao. Did you forget? Zihui fell out with Mr. Ding because of who left him alone in Guangzhou. I heard Zihui call her Rujing. Yes, her name is Jin Rujing. This Jin Rutian was his biological younger sister. The wealthy young master had just pledged his life to a country girl, but was forcibly taken back by his father and left a sum of money in his name as compensation, just to make the girl think she had been abandoned. But Rujing didn't believe that Ding Zihui, who had sworn eternal vows to her, was so heartless and indifferent. So she went to Shanghai with her sister, hoping to confront Zihui face to face. But what Rujing never expected was that when she finally saw the man she had longed for day and night, he actually ignored his presence and instead had his friend escort him home. It turned out Ding Zihui's father was at the scene. Worried about making a scene, he had his friend Song Wensi take her away first. Then he gave her a letter with the meeting place. Rujing, no matter what means you use this time, you must hold on to Ding Zihui tightly. You absolutely cannot let him run away again. Whether you can pay the rent this time or not, Mom is counting entirely on you. After months apart, lovers finally met again, and both were overjoyed. Is it really you? I feel like I'm dreaming. It's me. Ding Zihui, who has been thinking about you day and night, is standing right in front of you. Ding Zihui explained to Rujing that he was forcibly taken home and locked up by his father at first. In the days that followed, because he missed Rujing so much, Zihui drank every day and was utterly dejected. But the Ding family was wealthy, and Ding's father would never allow his son to marry a country girl from an incompatible background. To help his son take on the family's responsibilities, Ding's father said he could help if he could. If the family had closed a business to prove their abilities, he would agree to his son's marriage to Rujing. Ding Zihui immediately got up and went to Guangzhou. He had thought doing business would be easy, but after several months, it still ended in failure. This business failure dealt Ding Zihui a heavy blow, and he even began to doubt whether he could bring happiness to Rujing. Don't lose confidence because of one failure. You're young, knowledgeable, and experienced. I believe that after a few more trials, you will definitely make your father see you in a new light. Rujing made a vow to Zihui to marry no one but him. The two firmly believed that as long as they worked together, they would surely win the blessings of the Ding family's parents. The whole family was happy for Rujing, but after analyzing it repeatedly, the biggest obstacle at present is Ding Zihui's parents. The younger sister Rutian once met Ding's mother at a flower arrangement competition and found her kind and approachable, allowing her sister to start with Ding's mother and gain her approval first. Unexpectedly, when Rutian took her sister to meet Ding's mother, but unexpectedly, when Xian was also here. When Xian is my future daughter-in-law. I want to follow my brother's arrangements, and brother Zihui is also a very good person. This made Rutian even more misunderstanding, suspecting that Song Wensi was sabotaging the situation. From the start, he had done everything possible to prevent Ding Zihui from dating his sister. It turned out it was to get his sister to marry Ding Zihui. Holding back his anger, Rutian was about to confront Song Wensi, but when he saw him coming to pick up his sister, he immediately rushed over. You know full well that young Master Ding and Wen Xuan have no feelings, betraying your only family. These things are for you. It's more ordinary than a finger move. Clearly, Wen Xuan's marriage was decided by Ding's mother on her own, and Song Wensi never intended for her to marry Zihui. But he didn't explain and just let Rutian misunderstand. Then he went to Zihui and told him about it. To reassure Rujing, Zihui secretly found her and cleared up the misunderstanding. Their bond was stronger than gold, carefully maintaining their secret affair. But Ding's father found out, and no matter what, he could not agree to his son marrying a country girl. A country girl visits her boyfriend's home for the first time, only to be introduced by her future father-in-law to an old man as a concubine. To be honest, I liked you as soon as you came in. I want to make you my second wife. It turned out that the wealthy young master Ding Zihui was a country girl. Rujing fell in love at first sight and pledged herself to her. When he learned that the girl he loved was still renting, Ding Zihui decided to help Rujing buy a place. Unexpectedly, his father found out about this, and he became even more convinced of Rujing. She was just greedy for her son's money and firmly opposed their relationship. Let me tell you, a poor woman is just about money. If you weren't my son, I would have kicked you aside long ago. No matter how Zihui tried to explain to his father that Rujing was not a girl greedy for money, and that they truly loved each other, but Ding's father just refused to believe it. If you ever keep secretly seeing that village girl behind my back, I'll cut off your living expenses. Today, I'll be honest with you. I won't marry anyone but Rujing. Seeing his son so stubborn, Ding's father decided to invite Rujing to their home. She got straight to the point, saying she would never let her marry into the Ding family, and even pushed her to become a concubine for an old man. If Miss Rujing is willing to marry me, I'll buy you a luxury home right away, and even get you a car. I'm the type to keep my word. Faced with such humiliation, Rujing didn't lose her temper on the spot. Seeing Rujing unmoved, the old man had someone bring over a large stack of cash, frankly saying that as long as Rujing was willing, she could take any amount she wanted. Rutian couldn't take it anymore. The ugly faces of these rich people flipped the bills off the table, preparing to take her sister and leave. But Rujing stopped her, then sorted the money on the floor one by one and put it back on a plate. Just as Ding's father and the old man thought Rujing had finally compromised for money, Rujing's approach slapped them hard. Our family may not be wealthy, but we can still survive on our own. Mansions and cars are great, but they don't have to be necessary. My family and I care more about inner happiness and peace. Rujing spoke calmly. His words made Ding's father see him in a new light. But the Ding family was wealthy, so he preferred to marry the sister of Shanghai's richest man, Song Wensi. But Zihui's feelings for Rujing were stronger than gold, and he swore he would marry no one but her. Father, please agree to my marriage with Rujing. In this life, I will marry no one but Rujing. Oh my, all right. Ding's father was furious. Ding's mother took a compromise and invited Rujing to attend her own charity gala. The invited young lady at the charity gala has to perform, so everyone present can do as they please. Donations are raised based on the show's preferences, and performers of the most popular shows receive 10% of the donation. Originally unprepared, Rujing had a sudden inspiration after learning the rules of the fundraising event and invited the children present to play along with her. The music performed was I Am a Little Newspaper Seller. As expected, the program she performed received the most votes, and she also received 10% of the donation fundraising. But after the hostess handed the money to Rujing, she spoke her view with dignity. I do not agree with doing good in this way. Doing good should be selfless, yet the reward setting goes against the original intention of doing good, turning it into a game. Every move of the children and adults present has a huge impact on them. I think they only see the vanity of winning awards, but cannot grasp the true meaning of charity. Afterwards, Rujing also put the prize money she received into the donation box. Her courage and generous demeanor earned high praise from Ding's mother. After returning home, Ding's mother described Rujing's behavior to Ding's father in detail. In Ding's mother's eyes, Rujing was completely worthy of Zihui. Finally, following Zihui's mother's suggestion, Ding's father decided to invite Rujing's family to their residence. During the meal, Ding's father got straight to the point by asking when and what the engagement was agreed upon by the Jian family's parents. Jian's mother was so excited she jumped up. To cover up her embarrassment, she used the excuse of going to the bathroom, but unexpectedly overheard people whispering in a room, saying they wanted to kill that person and rob the goods. Although Jian's mother loved money deeply, she was convinced that the Ding family's business was not clean, worried that her daughter's future might be affected. Jian's mother became very cold and firmly opposed the marriage. This marriage is settled here. I will not agree to you marrying into the Ding family now. You and Ding Zihui will never become husband and wife in this lifetime. Just give up on that idea. Hey, be careful. The bald girl put on her wedding dress, finally ready to marry the man she loved. But at the wedding, the man wore a worried expression, showing no happiness at all. So much so that when exchanging rings, he was actually distracted. Looking at the ring that had fallen to the ground, and, like a walking corpse, Song Wensi could no longer bear such harm and threw down her veil, running out. Song Wensi hurriedly chased after her, questioning her why she had done this. Your heart is filled with all Rutian. Bi Rao, you've misunderstood. Wensi, stop fooling yourself. Bi Rao openly stated the truth that Song Wensi dared not admit. He had long fallen in love with Rutian. To give her a job opportunity, Song Wensi directly bought the flower shop, and after forcing him to sell it, planning to open a processing factory for Rutian. Such concern had long surpassed the boundaries of friendship. Bi Rao's words completely awakened Song Wensi. At that moment, he finally realized that he had unknowingly fallen in love with Rutian through his interactions. Unable to suppress her feelings any longer, Song Wensi braved the pouring rain to find Rutian and confessed his feelings to her directly. Miss Rutian, please allow me to tell you about all this time. I silently admire you in my heart. I've fallen in love with you. Song Wenxi's confession left Rutian utterly shocked. She never expected that the usually aloof Song Wenxi would actually fall in love with her, and couldn't help but feel a bit secretly delighted. But unexpectedly, Song Wenxi's next words, with her extremely low emotional intelligence, completely infuriated her. I feel desperate and afraid because my feelings for you completely go against my own reason and character. My identity and social circle won't allow me to accept your family. Your crude and profit-driven mother and your inappropriate younger sister both make me feel painful and embarrassed. Song Wenxi's words made Rutian feel deeply humiliated. She could not accept anyone belittling her family, and she despised Song Wenxi's arrogance and rudeness even more. From the very first moment I met you, your words and actions left a deep impression on me, and I firmly believed in you. Your arrogance, selfishness, and complete disregard for others' feelings have made me deeply dislike you. But after a series of events, I grew even more hated for you. I haven't known you for long, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that no one can convince me to accept you. You are the least I can do under heaven. A man willing to offer himself to her. Every word Rutian said deeply pierced Song Wenxi's heart, and she walked back in the pouring rain. In the days that followed, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep every night. To dispel Rutian's misunderstanding of her, Wenxi wrote her a letter. He even specifically explained the misunderstanding between Tianyu and himself. But just as he was about to deliver the letter he had painstakingly written to Rutian, the factory manager hurried over to report that the pharmaceutical factory warehouse had caught fire. Song Wenxi rushed over immediately, panicking, and put on his clothes. But the letter slipped out of his pocket and was found by Tianyu, who was sneaking around the factory. From the letter, Tianyu learned that Wenxi had fallen in love with Rutian and mistakenly believed Wenxi was Lu Tianyu, the father who killed him. A perfect revenge plan was born. On Rutian's birthday, Tianyu arrived at Rutian's home holding roses and then took her to a lawn. Jian Rutian, will you marry me? To get back at his former good brother, the man actually proposed to the girl he loved most. Lu Tianyu mistakenly thought he was Song Wenxi. She was the murderer of her father. After learning that he had fallen in love with Rutian, she used Rutian's affection for her to launch a fierce pursuit of her. Rutian, who already had feelings for Tianyu, ultimately couldn't resist his sweet words. She accepted the proposal. I do. I'm willing to marry you. Soon after, Lu Tianyu found Bai Rao, who deeply loved Song Wenxi, expressing that he loved Rutian deeply, but now they couldn't marry because they couldn't afford a happy life for Rutian. Of course, Bai Rao hoped Lu Tianyu and Rutian would marry soon, as only then could Song Wenxi possibly return to her side. So Bai Rao used her connections to introduce Tianyu to some respected senior figures in the business world. He quickly became one of the top 10 new elites in Shanghai. Meanwhile, Bai Rao also told Song Wenxi that Rutian was about to marry Lu Tianyu. Bai Rao's words instantly made Song Wenxi extremely nervous, and she immediately found Rutian, who was deliberately avoiding her. Once again, she made her feelings clear. Compared to the domineering Song Wenxi, Rutian preferred the gentle and refined Lu Tianyu. I'm already afraid of you, Song Wenxi. If this is how you love, I'm sorry I can't accept it. Because all I want is only a man who truly cares for me, who is gentle and considerate toward me. I don't see that in you. With Bai Rao's help, Lu Tianyu quickly made a fortune and finally owned a big house of his own. His marriage to Rutian was also put on the agenda. Song Wenxi also received their wedding invitation, hurried to Rutian's home, and took Rutian away in front of Lu Tianyu, hoping she wouldn't rush into marriage, because Tianyu was an irresponsible petty person. But Rutian still held prejudices against Song Wenxi. She felt he was deliberately slandering Tianyu. With no other choice, Song Wenxi had to voice the shame she didn't want to speak of. He was once very irresponsible, letting a young woman get pregnant. You're talking nonsense. That person was Wen Xian. Looking back, when Xian was heartbroken and desperate over the man who betrayed her, and Lu Tianyu turned around and married a wealthy woman. After she died an unnatural death, he swore solemnly to her. For the first time, Rutian began to question Lu Tianyu's character. Let's call off the engagement first. Seeing Lu Tianyu angrily accusing Song Wenxi, Rutian was completely disappointed. Meanwhile, Bai Rao learned that their engagement had changed and immediately threatened Tianyu. Tianyu, find a way to make the wedding proceed as scheduled, or else our agreement is wiped clean. To rise to great heights, Lu Tianyu immediately came up with a new malicious plan. The wealthy heiress easily believed her ex-boyfriend's sweet talk, not only causing her brother to be wrongfully imprisoned, but also costing her own life. Wen Xian knew full well that her ex-boyfriend Lu Tianyu had gotten pregnant before marriage and then disappeared without a trace. She knew he had married a widowed rich woman for money, and even that he had just called off his wedding with a best friend. But her love-struck heart couldn't resist. Lu Tianyu's sweet words made her easily believe that he was forced by her brother, completely forgetting that he valued her more than life itself. It was only at the moment I put the ring on you that I realized. The only person I will cherish for a lifetime is you. I won't allow myself to lose you again, and I won't allow anyone to stop us from being together. To gain Wen Xuan's trust, Tianyu invited her to a church and promised to propose to her brother soon. The naive Wen Xuan was thus bewitched by Lu Tianyu. Seeing the time was right, Lu Tianyu lied that he had something to do, tricked Wen Xuan into delivering materials for him, and handed over the documents accusing his brother Song Wenxi of crimes to reporter Yang Shilan. Your acts of justice will be remembered forever. What are you talking about? Sorry, Guard Su. Yang Shilan's words made Wen Xian suspicious. But before she could get to the bottom of it, Tianyu's subordinate Uncle Feng hurriedly dragged him to the wilderness, where he saw Lu Tianyu. Only then did Wen Xuan realize that Tianyu might be using him to frame his brother. Did you plan to use me from the start? I was the one who wanted to take back what I deserved at the Song family. You've been lying to me all along. You never liked me. At this moment, Lu Tianyu stopped pretending and revealed his true face. A humble servant who can marry the master's sister. The greatest honor. The day we get married will be the day your brother suffers the most. I wish I could see him powerless and in agony right now. Wen Xuan angrily wanted to leave, clamoring to tell his brother everything. She would never allow anyone to harm her only family. But how could Tianyu let her leave so easily? He wanted to imprison Wen Xuan until he completely defeated Song Wenxi. But Wen Xuan fought back desperately, breaking free from Lu Tianyu's grip. Meanwhile, the ruthless Uncle Feng stood nearby. He actually cut Wen Xuan's neck directly. This move completely stunned Lu Tianyu, because he had never intended to kill Wen Xuan. He shouldn't have died. That's not my plan. Young master, to achieve great things, you can't have any compassion. Uncle Feng told Lu Tianyu to leave quickly, while he stayed behind to quickly deal with Wen Xuan's body. Meanwhile, reporter Yang Shilan, under Lu Tianyu's instructions, reported extensively in the newspapers based on the materials Wen Xuan had given him. A certain government participated in drug manufacturing, while Song Wenxi's Xihua Pharmaceutical was tasked with supplying important raw materials for drug production. Patriotic students organized a march, which made the prefecture furious. Meanwhile, the moment Song Wenxi learned of his sister's disappearance, he searched everywhere without pause, but for several days there was no news. He keenly sensed that all of this was closely related to Tianyu, so he hurried to his home and fought him fiercely. Ratian also learned from his sister that Wen Xuan was missing. She hurried to Tianyu's house and happened to witness the two fighting. Wenxi saw her beloved girl defending another man and knew Lu Tianyu wouldn't say anything, so she angrily left. Unexpectedly, she was taken away by the police on her way home, and all of this was set up by Tianyu. To find the missing Wen Xuan, Ratian went to his room and found Tianyu's pocket watch, which made him suspect Wen Xuan's disappearance was related to him. So he quickly went to Tianyu's apartment. While searching for evidence in the messy room, she discovered the report about Yang Shilan. At that moment, she finally understood that Tianyu was framing Wenxi. Faced with Rushan's accusations, Tianyu remained calm and unfazed. Instead, he stabbed his own arm hard and then pulled out a bullet. He told Ratian that he had taken it out of his father's coffin and embedded it in his own arm, constantly reminding him to avenge Wenxi's father's death. He admitted to using Wen Xuan to frame Song Wenxi, but he lied, claiming he knew nothing about Wen Xuan's whereabouts. Under Tianyu's superb acting, Ratian was once again deceived and chose to believe him. Ratian persuaded Tianyu to give up his revenge. Although Tianyu agreed on the surface, he secretly plotted even more malicious schemes. He knew well that his sister's death was enough to make Wenxi unbearably unbearable, and taking away his beloved girl, Ratian, would surely make him wish he were dead. Ratian, promise me that we can get back together, okay? The woman had been searching for her best friend for days, but unexpectedly, she died by the riverbank. But instead of calling the police, she immediately found the culprit and told him to leave quickly. It turned out that not long ago, Wen Xuan had been brutally murdered after being blindly believed by the scumbag Lu Tianyu's sweet talk, and her brother was also arrested and imprisoned because of his involvement. Bai Rao, who deeply loved Song Wenxi. Believing this was a good opportunity, she could once again prove to Wenxi that she would always stand by his side. Bai Rao did everything she could to win the mayor's wife's favor, earning a chance to speak with her alone, and ultimately rescued Wenxi. After being released, Wenxi immediately found Lu Tianyu and found him holding the girl he loved. Sadness and anger surged in his heart, but at that moment, his only concern was his sister's whereabouts. Yet Tianyu still lied about ignorance, and even turned the tables, claiming he would use Wen Xuan. He was the one who framed Wensi. If it weren't for his greed causing his father's death, he wouldn't have done this. Wensi looked at Tianyu, who was lying endlessly, still unwilling to explain that his father's death had nothing to do with her. Enough, stop fighting. Stop right there. You have time to slander and attack each other here, but don't have time to properly confront Wen Xuan? You've all given up on him. Wen Xuan was utterly exhausted, indicating that whether Wen Xuan lived or died. Come out here, Lin Yi, but she didn't tell Song Wensi right away. Instead, she hurried to Lu Tianyu's house, falsely claiming her father had run away and asked him to help her search at the train station. She then tricked him onto the train. Only after the train started did he tell him the truth. Tianyu, Wen Xue is dead. Wensi won't let you off. You should avoid it for now. Rutian had long been brainwashed by Lu Tianyu's sweet talk, firmly believing he would never harm Wen Xuan, which is why he did this. Meanwhile, Wensi was heartbroken after seeing her sister's body at the police station. Although he was certain that Lu Tianyu had killed Wen Xuan, he had no evidence. The law could not help his sister get justice, so he decided to handle it himself. So he grabbed a gun and rushed to Lu Tianyu's home, only to learn that Tianyu had already fled. Song Wensi couldn't understand why the woman he loved so deeply would choose to let go of a murderer who had killed his sister, even defending the killer. His only goal is to avenge his father. I don't believe he would kill anyone. I don't want you to regret it for the rest of your life because of a moment of impulse. When Xian was killed by him, absolutely not wrong. Do you really believe I killed his father? You believe he wouldn't harm anyone, but you believe I will. Faced with the misunderstanding of his beloved woman, Song Wensi finally revealed the truth about Tianyu's father's death years ago. It turned out that Tianyu's father had been the chief steward of the Song family, relying on the family's respect and trust to amass wealth on a large scale. To cover it up, he even deposited all the money into his mistress's account. When Song Wensi learned he had fled with money from the factory, he hurriedly drove after him. With nowhere else to go, Lu Fu shot at Wensi, but fortunately, Bai Rao arrived and blocked the shot. Lu Fu's lover wanted to keep the property for himself and killed Tianyu's father with a single shot. Song Wensi knew Tianyu's respect for his father and kept his father's disgrace secret to protect his reputation. Rutian was shocked by these words, but did not regret his decision. She knew revenge wouldn't solve the problem and patiently advised Wensi not to act rashly. If Lu Tianyu was truly guilty, the law would definitely punish him. With Rishin's persuasion, Wensi finally calmed down and went with Rutian to her sister's grave. But unexpectedly, Lu Tianyu actually didn't leave. Looking at the murderer of his sister, Song Wensi could no longer suppress his anger, and the two quickly started wrestling. Stop fighting. Song Wensi, if you kill him, I won't forgive you. Lu Tianyu never expected. Song Wensi actually spared him for Rishin's sake, and immediately decided to use Rutian to completely defeat Song Wensi. I must marry her as my wife. I must have her. The madman caused the death of the wealthy heiress who loved him deeply. He then turned his poison toward her best friend. To completely defeat Song Wensi, Lu Tianyu killed his sister and planned to steal the woman he loved most. To make Rutian happy, Lu Tianyu paid people to buy all the flower soaps in her shop. But Rutian couldn't let go of Wen Xuan's death and became extremely cold toward Lu Tianyu. Meanwhile, the cunning Lu Tianyu directly turned his attention to Rishin's money-loving mother. Jian's mother looked at Tianyu's generous spending and was convinced he was her wealthy son-in-law. So he deliberately created opportunities for the two of them. But even so, Rutian was still unmoved. Because ever since he learned that Song Wensi's pharmaceutical factory had been taken over by Tianyu's scheme, Rutian had become suspicious of his character. And at Song Wensi's most difficult moment, Bai Rao approached him and said she held 60% of the pharmaceutical factory. Wensi, as long as we get married, Xihua will still be yours. Although the pharmaceutical factory was very important to Wensi, after much consideration, he chose the latter between career and love. Wensi carefully picked out a ring and proposed to Rutian again. Rutian, will you be my wife? You're ridiculous, picking up a cheap ring and thinking you can propose to me. Rutian said that Song Wensi was worthless nowadays, and only Lu Tianyu could give her to her. She lived a wealthy material life. The clever Wensi knew Rutian must be lying, because when she was still the richest man in Shanghai, her first proposal to Rutian was rejected. If she really were a vain girl, she wouldn't have rejected him in the first place. Ru Tian Yin insurgently refuted Wensi and hurried away, only hiding in her room and crying loudly after returning home. Through the window, she saw Wensi sadly dropping the ring and leaving, so she ran out recklessly to pick it up. Only then did she realize she had fallen in love with Wensi, and the reason she rejected Wensi was also for him. It turned out that not long ago, Bai Rao had told Rutian that only she could provide Wensi with career support and help him reclaim the factory. for Wensi. Only then did Rutian painfully say something against his heart. Despite Bai Rao's scheming, Song Wensi still refused her marriage proposal. He would rather have nothing than marry a woman he didn't love. I never want to see you again. Even though Wensi broke her heart, but Bai Rao was still willing to help him unconditionally. As a shareholder, she said she wanted to invite Wen Shilai to help manage the pharmaceutical factory. But Tianyu produced a contract stating that as long as Tianyu paid Bai Rao enough, Bai Rao would have to pay her holdings. The shares were transferred unconditionally. But this contract was not the one she had signed before. Only then did Bai Rao realize she had been tricked by Lu Tianyu. But the noble young lady who always spoke of authority would never let petty people run rampant. She turned and found Rutian. Rutian, I want to treat you to a good show. The two women, once rivals in love, unexpectedly joined forces for the first time, just to deal with the scumbag. Only after Bai Rao realized she had been played by Lu Tianyu did she suddenly realize how foolish she had been. To prevent the innocent Rutian from falling victim again, she arranged to meet Tianyu at a cafe, but had Rutian hide in a corner. A woman you thought you could hold in your hand ended up dumping you instead. That's really intense. She didn't marry me. It's her loss. Under Bai Rao's verbal attacks, Lu Tianyu was furious and humiliated, confessing everything about how he had used Rutian and framed Wensi. Hearing the truth firsthand, Rutian stood up excitedly. Seeing his true nature exposed, Lu Tianyu simply stopped pretending and openly admitted all the bad things he'd done. You're the most foolish woman in the world. So what? Hit me. What hurt Rutian the most wasn't Tianyu's deception, but her own prejudice. This indirectly caused Song Wensi to lose the pharmaceutical factory. To help him make a comeback, Rutian decided to fight alongside him. She resigned from her job at Madame Ding's living hall and used all her savings to pay the penalty for breach of contract. She then went to Wensi's soap factory. The two decided to work together. One focused on research and development, the other expanding the market. Thanks to advertising and marketing featuring handsome men and beautiful women, the small soap quickly became a hot commodity in Shanghai. Rutian pressed the advantage. She created the soap Rose Kiss, extracting 1,000 rose essential oils. This soap was bought at auction by the mayor's wife for a high price of 1,000 yuan, making the soap factory famous. Lu Tianyu watched Wensi make a comeback thanks to the soap factory. A malicious plan surged in his mind. He had Uncle Feng sneak into the soap factory late at night and add toxic substances to the raw materials for soap production. A little girl secretly licked her mother's newly bought soap, foamed at the mouth, and fainted on the way home. Rushan's mother also developed a skin disease after using soap. The police arrived at the soap factory and arrested many workers. Song Wensi was spared jail thanks to his aunt's guarantee, but he was busy rescuing the workers. Rutian hurried over. She guessed that Tianyu might be behind it. But Wensi didn't want Rutian to get involved, so she harshly accused Rutian of being deeply involved. Rutian left angrily and told her eldest sister about the matter. Rujing calmly analyzed the matter. He believed Wensi was doing this to protect Rutian. Rutian, you really have fallen in love with Mr. Song. To help Wensi, Rutian came to the soap factory late at night and unexpectedly overheard a conversation between Wensi and Tianyu. Tianyu admitted that he was responsible for poisoning the soap factory. Wensi tries to explain the true cause of his father's death to Tianyu, but Wensi realizes that perhaps he doesn't care at all about why his father died, and is simply using the pretext of revenge to fight for the Song family's assets. Having his ugly mask torn off, Tianyu stopped pretending and admitted that Wensi's sister did die because of him, but that it was Uncle Feng who killed her. He then shot him in the chest. Uncle Feng never imagined that his loyal young master would kill him so ruthlessly. The reason the deranged Tianyu did this was to frame Wensi. A dignified national entrepreneur turned into a deranged murderer. This story is so captivating. I will prove his innocence. But Lu Tianyu didn't take Rutian seriously. Instead, he arrogantly told her, one day you'll marry me for money, and let me do whatever I want for money. The woman ate a barrage of soap in front of everyone, just to help the man she loved make a comeback. It turned out that not long ago, due to Lu Tianyu's framing, Song Wensi's soap factory fell into crisis. To help him make a comeback, Rutian secretly traveled to Xinjiang to find lavender, extracted its essence, and developed a special lavender flower soap. She then recklessly stopped the mayor's wife's car, handed her the lavender soap she had carefully developed, and told her that the last poison soap incident was a scheming conspiracy targeting a national enterprise. Please continue to support our national brand. Rushan's sincerity and excellent products moved the mayor's wife, who publicly expressed her support for Guhua soap. Major newspapers rushed to report on it, and for a time, Guhua soap once again became a hot commodity in Shanghai. Song Wensi's soap factory was thus revived. To increase consumer trust in Guhua, Rutian also invited them to visit the soap factory's production line and undergo user inspection. Song Wensi was deeply moved by all the quiet work Rutian had done for herself. He pulled her aside and asked why she didn't say anything. Just going to such a distant place. Rutian had to promise herself not to go alone without saying a word again. Rutian joked that it depended on how much Wensi gave her for the business trip. Is it enough to use my whole life? Rutian shyly pushed Wensi away and hurried into the soap factory. Because she believed it was because she had mistakenly trusted Tianyu that indirectly caused Wensi to lose everything. She was determined to do everything she could to help Wensi reclaim everything. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tianyu saw this. Wensi was about to make a comeback, so he sent people to steal goods from the soap factory that merchants had given to them, causing Wensi another loss. Then he sent people to storm his soap factory and started fighting Wensi. At the critical moment, Rutian opened the door to the adjacent room. They pulled Wensi along to hide, thus avoiding misfortune. However, all the factory's equipment was destroyed. The next day, Zihue and Rujing rushed over and rescued the trapped Rutian and Wensi. Unexpectedly, when Rutian returned home exhausted, but then she saw Tianyu, who was waiting for her. Unaware of the situation, Jian's mother was convinced he was her wealthy son-in-law, so she used the excuse of making a cameo to drag Rujing out, hoping to give them a chance to be alone. But Rutian had already seen through it. Tianyu's cunning were immediately ordered to leave. Enraged and humiliated, Tianyu grabbed Rutian into his car without giving him a chance to argue. Wensi happened to see him, but he could only watch helplessly as Rutian was taken away. Tianyu took Rutian hostage and tied her to the bed, forcing Rutian to stay by his side. But Rushin's heart was already filled by Wensi, and no matter what, she refused to yield. I want her to never have peace in this life, worse than death. And so a night passed, dragging the exhausted body home. Rushin's personality changed drastically. Breaking away from her usual plain style, she put on heavy makeup and changed into a sexy gown. Rujing was shocked by her sister's transformation. She knew what had happened with her sister's dramatic transformation, but Rutian said she was just thinking about it. Choose a more relaxed lifestyle. Wensi has been on a downward trend, while Tianyu's career is getting better and better, and he's willing to give everything for me. No matter what, I've decided to give him this chance. The girl who was imprisoned by her ex-boyfriend for a night. After returning home, her personality changed drastically. The originally plain girl next door put on heavy makeup and wore sexy dresses, and her principles of self-reliance became money-driven. When asked by her sister, Rutian said she just didn't want to live a poor life anymore, so she wanted to return to her ex-boyfriend. Rujing thought her sister must have been threatened by Lu Tianyu, so she immediately found Song Wensi and told him about Rushin's situation. Wensi was shocked when she found out. She couldn't believe Rutian would give up on her. Meanwhile, Rutian attended the dinner with Lu Tianyu, chatting and laughing, loving and sweet. This scene happened to be witnessed by Song Wensi's aunt, who immediately sent someone to call him to watch the show. Upon hearing the news, Wensi hurried over and happened to run into her in the corridor. Rutian went to the restroom. He pressed Rutian about what had happened, but Rutian told him nothing and even said hurtful words. I have never forgotten Tianyu in my heart. Or rather, there is no one in my heart. It carries more weight than Tianyu. Rushin's words pierced Wensi's heart like a sharp knife, making even her breathing ache. Little did she know, she did all this to protect herself. I can be with you, but please don't hurt Lin Xian. Rutian endured her grief and turned to leave. Hiding in the shadows, Tianyu overheard their conversation and let down his guard against her. From then on, wherever he went, Rutian took him along, making everyone think they were engaged. Rutian took the opportunity to work for Lu Tianyu's cousin. Jian Erden learned of Tianyu's plan. He was plotting to sell Xihua pharmaceuticals to foreigners. Rutian knew how important Xihua was to Wensi, and she was determined to stop all of this. She quickly found out that Tianyu was about to counterfeit and inferior medicines were sold to Boss Ding. His goal was to use Boss Ding's largest order in history to raise prices for foreigners and sell Xihua. Rutian tried every possible way to finally meet Boss Ding and told him everything. Lu Tianyu is trying to harm you. I guarantee with my life that I won't dare to deceive you in any way. Upon learning the truth, Boss Ding was furious. If you don't kill him, he won't make a name for himself. Meanwhile, Wensi believed that under the current circumstances, it would be difficult to reclaim Xihua Pharmaceutical, so he decided to take it away. Guhua Soap Factory was reorganized into Guhua Pharmaceutical, using the factory's profits to support the development of the pharmaceutical industry. After learning this, Rutian hid in a corner and secretly observed Wensi's every move, but was unexpectedly seen by Bai Rao. She pulled Rutian out, accusing Rutian of stealing information for Tianyu. To avoid worrying Wensi about her, Ru Tian lied that she was indeed there to gather information for Tianyu. Unexpectedly, this made Wency completely hate Ru Tian. The man looked at the woman he loved. Watching another man pass by her, her heart ached as if she had drunk 18 bottles of vinegar. Little did she know, she did this entirely to help him reclaim everything he had lost. And Tianyu didn't truly love Tian, only because he took away the girl's song Wency loved. It brings pleasure to his twisted mind. To annoy Wency, Tianyu deliberately pulled Rutian to dance intimately next to Wency. Tianyu understood Tianyu's thoughts and angrily scolded him. Although Wency was upset that Rutian had abandoned her, but he was still very worried about her safety, since his sister had died at Tianyu's hands. So he persuaded Rutian to leave Tianyu. But Rutian knew his mission was not yet complete, so he could only hide his feelings and once again say something insincere. Soon, with Rishin's help, Boss Ding canceled his cooperation with Tianyu. Having lost this large order, Tianyu was anxious to sell Xihua, falling into a trap set by Wency. Birao had her friend Andrew pretend to be a buyer to help Wency buy Xihua. Wency reclaimed the family business. When Rutian learned the truth, she was very happy for Wency. She thought she could withdraw from Tianyu, but Boss Ding told her it wasn't the right time because Tianyu still held the chips. With the open bidding for the Sino-American pharmaceutical cooperation, Tianyu's opportunity came again. Rutian had no choice but to return to Tianyu's side. Wency was determined to win this bid, and Tianyu refused to back down. After weighing the options, the mayor's wife decided to use bridge to decide who would win this opportunity. But Wency knew nothing about bridge techniques or rules, only learning the basic rules 2 hours before the match. After learning this, Rutian discussed with Ding's father and willingly acted as Tianyu's insider, using gestures to convey key information, just to lend Wency a helping hand. And so, the two men at the table wagered all their bets. Song Wency first advanced by retreating, deliberately showing weakness to make Lu Tianyu lower his guard. The arrogant Lu Tianyu even wanted to celebrate in advance, unaware that death was imminent. The second half concerned the future of two men. Rutian showed her strength, every movement and glance leading the battle. Finally, with Rishin's hint, Song Wency turned the tide and won the bid. Rutian was so moved that tears streamed down her face. Her endurance had finally paid off. But when she saw Bai Rao pull Song Wency away, only she could truly understand the bitterness in her heart. Lu Tianyu was kicked out with nothing, only to find his true colors exposed, making a scene. He completely shed his usual gentlemanly image. The mayor's wife saw his hypocrisy and was deeply disappointed. "Don't let me see you again." And so, Lu Tianyu lost his last lifeline. In a fit of rage, he rushed to Rishin's home and took her away. "Rather than losing you, it's better to let him never have you." The man was shocked to discover that his beloved girlfriend had secretly helped his arch-rival cheat behind his back, causing him to lose everything at the gambling table. But even so, he still wanted to be with her. Upon learning that Rutian had betrayed him, Lu Tianyu came to her door holding roses, begging Rutian to return to his side. But originally, Rutian had been undercover by his side to help Wency reclaim the factory. Now that the mission was done, of course she couldn't agree. Being with you is only to stop hurting Wency. To help Wency reclaim everything that belongs to her, whether it's Xihua or bidding, I've always helped Wency. Everything I do is for him. Furious and humiliated, Tianyu grabbed Rishin's neck hard. Since he couldn't have Rutian, he decided to destroy her. Just as Rutian was about to suffocate, at the critical moment, Song Wency arrived and immediately wrestled with Lu Tianyu. Soon, Wency fell behind. To protect Rutian, he could only hold Lu Tianyu tightly and urge him to leave quickly. With no other choice, Rutian could only run away quickly to find the police, but the two were nowhere to be seen. Rishin's heart instantly tensed. He desperately called out Wency's name. Unexpectedly, Lu Tianyu's voice came from behind. "As you wished, from now on he will walk his own path, and I will walk my own single-log bridge, unrelated to each other." It turned out that just now, Wency was about to strangle Tianyu. While avenging his sister, he remembered Rutian, hoping he would let go of his hatred. In the end, he chose to forgive and gave Tianyu a way out. Rutian, however, was very worried that something would happen to Wency, so he ran to his house without restraint, rushing to Wency's room. At this moment, she finally realized how much she loved Wency. "Is bathing without closing the door one of you upper-class people? At least I won't just walk into someone else's bathroom." Rutian shyly ran off. After Wency got dressed and came out, the two opened their hearts and cleared up all past misunderstandings. "You don't know how Tianyu threatened me. He swore he'd make you wish you were dead. He has already killed Wen Xuan, and I can't let him hurt you again." Wency was moved by Rishin's dedication and liked this strong, independent, smart, and brave girl even more. At that moment, Bai Rao, who had been eavesdropping outside the door, rushed in and began to tell her about her devotion to Wensi. She would never allow the man she loved to marry another woman. From childhood to now, whatever I want must be obtained. That's just how I am. Once I've made up my mind, it's hard to change it. The rich young master severed ties with his family for the sake of a poor girl from the countryside. Overnight, he became penniless and penniless. His mother-in-law, who once treated him like a wealthy son-in-law, instantly changed her expression. He has nothing now, not worth a penny. It turned out Ding's father thought of Rujing in the countryside. He simply liked Zihue's status as a rich young master. If he were a penniless poor man, Rujing definitely wouldn't have chosen him. But Zihue trusted Rujing's character. They truly loved each other, and no matter what he became, she would stay by his side. In your eyes, am I worthless to begin with? Are you sure I can't live without this family? In all my life, I've never had a chance to make decisions on my own. Zihue left a letter for his mother. He even took off the suit he bought with his parents' money and came to Rujing's home wearing a vest and shorts. Just as Zihue had hoped, Rujing did not abandon him just because he was no longer the young master. Instead, she encouraged him to find a happy life with his own hands. Rujing's unwavering support motivated Zihue, and through his collaboration with his friend Song Wensi, his career gradually improved, and he owned his own factory. Just when he thought his marriage with Rujing would receive his father's blessing. But her father died unexpectedly. Because she got involved in a drug trafficking scandal, all of the Ding family's assets were confiscated. Upon learning of this, Rujing remained calm, not only proving that Zihue had long since severed ties with Ding's father and helped him protect the factory. He also persuaded Madame Ding to give up her property and save her life. I didn't expect you to be not only virtuous and generous, but also so bold at such a critical moment. Rujing's actions won Ding's mother's appreciation, and she agreed to her marriage with Zihue. But her younger sister Rutian was not so lucky. After much hardship, she and Song Wensi finally resolved their misunderstanding, but Bai Rao became an invisible shackle between them. Back then, Bai Rao risked her life to shield Wenxi from a bullet, leaving lingering effects that have never healed to this day. For the sake of her daughter's happiness, the aunt finds Rutian and takes out a large sum of money, hoping she will give up on Wensi. Rutian remains unmoved by the large sum and decisively refuses the aunt. Unexpectedly, the aunt is not discouraged and immediately sets her sights on Rishan's mother. She brings Jian's mother into the casino. She set a trap and left her with huge gambling debts. Unable to repay, Jian's mother was secretly imprisoned to force Rutian to give up on her relationship with Wensi. Unexpectedly, Rentian still refused and directly sought Wensi's help. Unaware of the situation, Wensi mistakenly thought it was Bai Rao's doing and harshly criticized her. Suffering an unjust injustice, Bai Rao was so moved she wanted to explain, but her condition worsened rapidly, and she collapsed to the ground. Although emergency surgery removed the bullet, Bai Rao fell into a coma. Wenxi's heart was torn in two. On one side was guilt toward Bai Rao. If she hadn't risked her life to shield him, he would have died long ago. How could he let down such deep affection? On the other hand, he was deeply concerned for his beloved Russian. In the end, Wensi paid off Russian's mother's debts and resolved her crisis. But this made Rutian feel deeply guilty. If her mother hadn't incurred gambling debts, Song Wensi wouldn't have provoked Bai Rao, nor would she have been left unconscious and her fate uncertain. In the end, Rutian decided to withdraw voluntarily and give up her relationship with Moonhee. In retaliation, the man dumped his ex-girlfriend and secretly eloped with her sister. To show his sincerity, he even burned his sister's photo in front of the girl. It turned out that long ago, Rian had fallen in love with Lu Tianyu at first sight. After learning that he had broken up with his second sister Rutian, he recklessly got together with Lu Tianyu. Little did they know, he was only seeking revenge. Unable to resist Lu Tianyu's deep temptation, Rian left a letter and eloped with him. Second sister, brother Yinyu has already admitted he was right. Your feelings are a mistake. After hearing Rian's letter, Jian's father flew into a rage, and Jian's mother fainted from worry. Rutian searched everywhere for her sister, but there was never a trace of her. Unexpectedly, a month later, he was back in his hometown. At the door, she ran into her sister and Tianyu even helped her buy back the old Jian family house. Seeing his sister so happy, Rutian became even more worried. She knew Tianyu was taking revenge on her, and even more aware that he carried 3 lives on his shoulders. But seeing her sister and the whole family so happy, she couldn't bear to tell the truth. Unexpectedly, just a few days later, Lu Tianyu's misdeeds were uncovered, and he was taken away by the police. This completely ruined the reputation of the Rutian family in the small town. Seeing her wealthy son-in-law become a prisoner, Mrs. Jian immediately thought of Song Wensi, who liked Rutian. Find a husband who can earn money, and you'll get twice the result with half the effort. Ratian, feeling troubled, didn't know how to explain. She didn't know if Bai Rao's illness had improved, nor if they were already married. But just as she was feeling troubled, she met Bai Rao, who had already recovered. Rushan's heart was filled with mixed emotions. She couldn't understand why Bai Rao had recovered from her illness, but when she still hadn't come to see her. Could their relationship really end just like that? Unconsciously, Ratian walked to the place where she first met Wensi. Memories flashed through her mind like a movie, and longing surged like a tide that drowned her. At that moment, Bai Rao's mother and her cousin's conversation made Ratian understand everything. It turns out that these days, Song Wensi has always cared for Bai Rao as an older brother. While accompanying Bai Rao in rehabilitation training, he secretly supported Tianyu, just to give Rushan's sister a proper status. Even the old house in the countryside was bought with Song Wensi's own money. At that moment, Ratian finally understood Song Wensi's sincere devotion to him and how important he was to her. Ratian chased after Song Wensi without hesitation. "I want to be your wife. Please, please propose to me." Wensi heard Rushan's words and was overjoyed. He led her to the vacant lot he had bought and told Ratian that he wanted to build a beautiful rose estate there. "Would you like to become Mrs. Song?" Mrs. Fong. After weathering storms, the two broke free from the constraints of arrogance and prejudice. After many twists and turns, they finally embraced, and their happy life began from that moment on.